My name is Glickenhouse. I'm the API Business Strategist for IBM. As Mehdi said, I do travel around the world. I meet with customers of all sizes, all different industries, and I'd like to share with you some of the observations that I've made. I probably have too many things to tell you for the 20-25 minutes that we've got here today, so I do encourage you to come up to me. I'll be here the whole conference. I would love to chat with you further about this or anything else that you'd like to discuss. So what I wanted to do was go through 4 common API business drivers that I'm seeing companies focus on, and 7 use case categories. And for that, what I'll do is introduce first the business drivers and then the use cases, and I'll go through a methodology to identify APIs in each of the 7 use case categories. Obviously, in 20 minutes, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, right? So we'll give you these slides afterward, and I'll point you to a lot of blogs and papers that I write as well on these topics. After that, I'll very quickly show you a couple of customer examples of companies that are achieving these results, and then at the very end, we'll give you links to all the blogs and things. So I'm going to use banking examples through this presentation, but I have at the end pointers to every other industry examples, so you can apply it to your industry if you're not a bank. So the previous speaker just spoke quite a bit about two-speed IT, or Gartner calls it bimodal IT, and this is definitely one of the big business drivers that we're seeing companies focus on. So the idea of traditional IT organizations having to maintain the stability and the reliability and the security of the back-end systems that are running the business, but that the business itself is trying to do things that are much more at a much more rapid pace. And we can't just throw changes into those back-end systems that are running the business for fear of an outage or security exposure. So by using APIs, we can extend our view of these assets so that business developers can create new innovative things at a much more rapid pace. And again, something we can get into in a lot of detail. The difference here in an API approach versus previous approaches is that instead of trying to make traditional IT run faster, which is what we've always done before, we're now going to allow for this multi-speed approach, right? And that's the big difference over previous attempts to fix this issue. I often say that the oldest problem in business is that business wants to do things fast and IT says 12 months, right? And so solving that problem is a very desirable thing for businesses and one of the promises of the API economy. The next business driver that I see very frequently is what I call reaching new customers or reaching new markets. So today, there are a certain set of customers that we're reaching. These customers, if we have a physical location, they're coming to our site, our retail store, our bank, whatever it may be, or they're coming to our website. They do a search, they're looking for something that we offer, and they come to our website and they find us and they do business with us. And of course, we love those customers. But there are a whole bunch of other customers out there that are just not coming to us. They're not finding us for whatever reason. They're looking for something else. And in the banking example, we often talk about, I refer to it as the business next door. So whatever industry you're in, there's a business next door that does something that you need. In the banking industry, it may be people who want to buy a car, right? People who buy a car need a bank loan sometimes to afford to buy the car. Or maybe it's somebody who wants to buy a house and needs a mortgage, right? So I'm not looking at a bank to buy a car, but I need a bank when I buy a car, right? So this is an alternative way to reach out to the marketplace and reach new customers. So instead, what we can do is create these business APIs and do things like mobile apps, but beyond that, do partnering kinds of things, public APIs for comparison engines, social media, and maybe even IoT device type scenarios, right? So reaching out through other channels and getting your product or your offerings in front of additional customers that weren't coming directly to you is one of the big business drivers as well. So I spoke about speed, I spoke about reach. I'm not going to go into the details on the last two, I'll just give you a quick perspective on them. The third one is innovation, sometimes related to IoT. So many businesses are saying, I have new entries into my in my industry, Other companies that were never a competitor before are coming in and doing things that I need to react to quickly, or maybe my own traditional competitors are doing things that I want to react to quickly. I need to be more innovative. I need to do things at a more rapid pace. And so the ability to innovate much more rapidly at low cost and low risk. So I can't afford to go back and change those systems of record that are running the business when I want to try something to be innovative. I need to be able to do it at low risk in case it does not work, that I can just throw it away, right? So APIs enable that as well. And then the fourth area is something I call domains. Domains have two different characteristics. One is a physical and the other is a logical. The most common instance of this is in logical domains is lines of business. So almost every medium-sized to larger business has multiple lines of business. And they tend to work independent of one another. So they want to be able to come out with their own offerings from each line of business, but there's an advantage if you can actually share information across lines of business. And we've been trying to do this in companies for a very long time with limited success, because one line of business will own a resource and sharing that with another could cause IT issues, can cause security issues, can cause sometimes regulatory issues in the banking industry. So I need to be able to control the access from one line of business to another and do things that allow that to happen when it's supposed to happen, but also protect the assets from being overused by other lines of business. So lines of business is one example of domains, and the other one is physical domains, which is multiple physical locations. A company may have multiple physical locations, or maybe it's cloud and on-premise, or multiple clouds and on-premise. And being able to move information across the different physical locations is again someplace where security, access control, auditing, various things need to occur to be sure that everything is working correctly. So these are the four business drivers that I'm seeing in the marketplace today. Last year, I did some work with Forrester Consulting. They took a look at our product from IBM and what our customers were getting as benefits from our product. And they looked at this across 6 different use case categories. The first 4 you see up here say the word internal in front of them. Internal means that the audience for the APIs was an internal developer of that company, right? Not somebody outside the company. And then the last 2 are partners and public. The paper is available externally. You can download the paper and see everything that they found. We can certainly give you a pointer to that. What I've done is take the 6 categories that they have identified here and added one more, which is devices and IoT, and come up with a methodology for identifying APIs in each of these categories. And so often what I'll do when I'm meeting with clients is go through these 7 categories, discuss what they are, and then we'll come up with use cases that apply to their particular business. So I'm not going to go through the details of all 7 of these just because of the lack of time, but I will hit on a couple of them, and I'll certainly define other when we get to that one. So the first one is mobile, right? So one of the first use cases that almost every company that I see is working on is their own mobile app. So their own developers in their company are creating a mobile app. And we look at a couple of different things for what companies might want to put on their mobile app. Certainly there's general information of the things that their company offers. In the banking case, we'll just click on this, what kind of accounts do you offer? What are your loan rates? These kinds of things that any of us that would go to the bank, we would get the same answer. This is my loan rate, this is my types of accounts that I have, here's my interest rates, things like that. The next things that we want to do is have personal information about what your account balance is, or I need to make a transfer of funds, things that you need to know who the individual is in order to do a transaction for them, and of course the security that goes around that. And then the third category of APIs that we look at are things that deal with the mobile device itself, right? So things like the GPS coordinates, the camera, things like that, that we can combine with our own APIs and maybe other people's APIs to be able to come up with a good solution for our offering on the mobile application. So this is examples of things in mobile. The next category is social, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to go into the details of all of these. In social, we obviously are looking for things where our companies are named, maybe our competitors are named, but beyond that, things like offerings that people are looking for, like, for example, people trying to buy a car, and I'm a bank, and I can offer my bank loan to people who are searching for car information, right? So there's a whole bunch of things out here. I won't get into the details of this one. The next one is data. So this one I do want to spend a minute on. Data is probably one of the most common API scenarios that I see companies focus on. Exposing assets that they've gathered. So they gather data from all the transactions and customer interactions that they're doing, and they do that typically for a particular purpose, a particular audience. And so they're making that data available inside the company to one audience, but there may be other audiences inside the company that could really benefit from that data, but they're just not getting to it because it's difficult to access. And so through having APIs to access that data, we can now make that data available inside the company for additional use and value for the company itself. And the next thing on data is to then make it available outside the company as well. So now I have the opportunity to not only use the data myself, but potentially sell this as a monetization opportunity to third parties. And I'll show you an example of that in a few minutes. The fourth category, the favorite, other, right? So Forrester came up with the other category. This is regulatory requirements, this is industry standards, this is the domains thought that I had for sharing things across lines of business, this is audit, this is security, a whole bunch of things just kind of fall into this bucket of other that we might do. And of course in banking here in Europe especially, PSD2 is a very hot topic, right? So something there that a lot of people are focused on in the other category. One of my favorites is partnering. To me, this is one of the big drivers that I think in the long term for APIs is going to be what this is all about. If you think about the partner onboarding process for a business today, before APIs, we would have a business agreement. You and I are going to become partners. And then the technical things happen, right? So I have to expose an interface to you. You have to understand what that interface is. I have to set up the security around that. I probably have to do some testing with you to be sure that you can get to only the information you're supposed to get to and that it's working for you. And that can take weeks and sometimes months to onboard a partner. And at the end of that, I have one partner. Then I get to do it all over again with the next partner. So what we want to do with APIs is pre-test those interfaces so that when we want to bring a partner on board, all we have to do after we have a business agreement that we're going to work together is give you access to the developer portal, and now you can do self-service onboarding as a partner. And so this gets partners on board much more rapidly and expands my reach, which is one of the big use cases for the business trying to reach out and get new value to the company. Public, of course, public APIs is always an interesting topic. As soon as I say public to a business, they say, "Oh, we're not going to do public APIs." And so one of the blogs that I wrote is "Don't be afraid of public APIs." So I try to put their mind at ease that anything that is currently on their website today is public information, and certainly making that available through APIs might not be a bad idea, right? So it's not that we're going to put the secrets from all the things that we necessarily use internally available as a public API, but we get to decide what's going to be out there. And I also say to them, if you don't create public APIs, two very bad things can happen. One is that if somebody's writing a comparison app for you and the other offerings in your industry, you could be ignored, right? So they'll only point to the other people who do give APIs to them. Or they're going to screen scrape your website to get the information, and it's going to be out of date, and you're generating a lot of traffic on your website. But it's certainly not going to be as valuable as if you can provide an API for them, right? So public is something that companies are doing. Typically not the first thing that they do, but as they move forward, it becomes something that they'll start to realize that they want to do. And then the last one is devices. And we talk to a lot of companies about devices. Some companies don't even realize that they have devices, banking being one of them. They have ATMs, right? So an ATM is a device, and we can do things with an ATM as a device. And I've come up with some scenarios for banks in that area as well. Typically, the scenarios around devices fall into three categories. Either we're getting information from the device, and we're going to do something with that information, through an API call from the device. We might send a command to the device to do something, right? So it could be a security camera that we want to look in a certain direction to see what's going on, or zoom in or zoom out. And then the third category, which we've done with some healthcare companies, is that some devices are just sending information all the time. And so it might be a medical thing that's, checking your blood pressure and everything is okay, everything is okay, everything is okay. And, we're just getting information we don't have to deal with until everything is not okay. And then we want to raise an alert. And so those kinds of alert situations could exist as well. So ATM scenarios, the new business models in that area could be interesting as well. And so there's a lot of things we can do there. So I wanted to go through a couple of customer examples. Walmart, you probably have heard of. So Walmart has focused on the speed area. There's a YouTube video created by Walmart, and basically fantastic results. 99% decrease in time needed for their developers to access the resources. So from 5 days down to 10 seconds, basically by having the developer portal there for them ready to go whenever they're looking for something. Yes Bank is a bank from India. Many Indian citizens who are working around the world are using Yes Bank, and they're reaching out to these Indian citizens in other geographies so that they can deal with a bank at home and deal with money being sent home or being obtained from home. And so it makes them feel like they're dealing with their local bank at home while they're living in other places around the world. And it's just reaching out and getting new customers that way. Raiffeisen Bank has done PSD2, right? So PSD2, of course, being one of the big things that companies are focusing on. We see companies that are focusing on PSD2 in two ways. One is I need to meet the regulatory requirements and get my offerings out there and meet the regulatory requirements. And the others are companies like Raiffeisen that are looking at it beyond that, right? And so PSD2 is getting a lot of banks to be interested in APIs, but it goes far beyond that as far as the opportunities that companies can focus on. So not only meeting the PSD2 regulatory requirements, but also increasing their capabilities, mobile apps, and various other things as well. And the last one of the customers I'll talk about is an automobile manufacturer who you probably know who they are. And they are gathering information from connected cars and selling that information to partners as a third-party new business model monetization. So this is an innovative approach to doing things in a new business scenario that they did not have before. All right, so I mentioned at the beginning that I would be sharing with you links to all the other industries. So I talked in the examples about banks. There are 20-something different blogs here on every other industry that you can think of. If you look at the first link at the top, that one links to all the other industries there. So that'll just get you to every one of them. There are also papers that I've written on monetization and more detail on certain industries here as well. And then the final link at the bottom is something that will give you more in-depth views than I had here in this 25 minutes to talk about the 4 business drivers and the 7 use case categories. So give you a second to just take a picture of that if you want, but hopefully we're going to get you these slides, so you can just click on these links. Later today, one of my colleagues here will be doing a workshop, and we encourage you to attend that. I hear it's very well signed up for, and in this workshop you'll be creating an API, making it available on the developer portal, looking at the analytics, doing all kinds of good things all within 50 minutes. So it's a very rapid hands-on activity that we're offering to you here today. And that's it. This is just one big link at the bottom here, developer.ibm.com/API Connect. If you go there, you'll find everything I ever put out, as well as a lot of my colleagues. So all my blogs, my papers, documentation on our product. You can try it for free, the product out there. So that's a great website to go to for resources that we can make available to you. So I flew through those slides. I didn't even get a 10-minute warning. I don't know how fast I did here, but all right. So opening for questions.
Food is coming in 6 minutes, so no rush. And we have time to discuss a little bit about all these models, right? So who is from the banking industry here? Banking, right? Some people here. Yeah, automotive industry, maybe. Healthcare. Yeah, some people, right? There. You will let me ask the first question again? I'll take it. So, Alan, you've talked about mostly all the models, right? That can be found. You said the partner is your favorite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, this is why most of the companies at first want to build APIs, right? For business, right? Internally for architecture, but for business. To you, what's the most successful partner API program that you've seen so far?
Well, the Yes Bank one is a good one. So we definitely see that. I mean, it's a smaller bank in India. It really was not one of even the top tier banks in India that really has improved their business tremendously through this partnership model. So I think that's probably when I think about the most successful partner scenario. As you said, the first scenarios that we see are these internal ones, right? So, we do see most companies not wanting to immediately jump to a partner thing. The first thing they want to do are some of those internal scenarios for mobile apps or social or data, and of course, the regulatory requirements. But after they've gotten their taste with the internal, then it becomes, okay, now I can generate new business, and I get excited.
And about public APIs, so the thing is, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, there is the hackathon frenzy, right? Everybody wanted to make a hackathon. But yeah, so we get back from that, right? But now it's regulation who impose public APIs, right? So what's, to your mind, what's the main thing to let's say, abort in your strategy when you have to make public APIs?
For regulatory requirements?
Yeah, for regulatory requirements.
So regulatory requirements are happening around the world in different industries. So here in Europe, it's PSD2. In the US, there's healthcare regulatory requirements. I was in South America, and it was open data for government requirements. So there are a lot of different industries that are kind of different kickstarts for meeting regulatory requirements. I think I'm seeing two different approaches to how companies attack that. One is I have to meet the regulatory requirements, and that's all I'm interested in. And the other is I'm going to learn about this and make it a differentiating opportunity for me to excel as a business and really win in the marketplace. And obviously there's a winner in that scenario. But the other thing I'm seeing is beyond regulatory requirements, many companies are recognizing a need for industry standards without regulatory requirements, right? So the idea, and this happened, I was talking to an insurance company in the US and Canada, that insurance in many parts of the world is not just insurance, it's also investments, right? And so companies can people can come to them individually and buy an investment from that particular company. But that's not the typical scenario. Typically, there's some kind of a financial advisor, financial company that is selling offerings to an individual, and they can sell your offerings or your competitors' offerings. And so that company that is selling the financial investment offerings to an individual doesn't want to get a different API from every one of the potential companies that has an offering to be sold. And similarly, as I offer my things through that financial advisor, I don't want to have a different API for the other financial advisor who's dealing with other ones. So they're recognizing before even beginning an API initiative that we need to come up with industry standards. And I think regulatory requirements are kind of giving a kickstart in certain industries, but I think in the longer term, industry standards are going to be the thing that drive even more.
Yeah, so more standards for the industry. Time for a last question about models, right? API models. So who has partner APIs here? Develop some partner APIs, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it a success? Oh, yeah, it's good. It's good, right? So I think you and all of you, you can talk to Alan. Alan, do you stay all day?
I will be here today and tomorrow. I do have a few people who've booked some time with me already, but if you want to just walk up if I'm not busy, but if you want to book some time, we can do that too.
Yeah, these experts with so many knowledge about all what other companies are doing are really few on Earth. So we're really glad to have Alan here. So thank you, Alan. Thank you very much to be here. Yeah.
Thank you very much.